YouTube Nation, for your success, Dr. Brandon 4, you're back on a special hike in the Grand Canyon, the Grandview Trail. The plan today is to start from Grandview Point, hike the Grandview Trail, Cottonwood Creek, to Tonto Trail, to Hance Creek, then back up Page through the return of Grandview. To Horseshoe Mesa, it's 3 miles. The Tonto Trail junction is 6.8. My hike today should be a total of 14.5 miles. It is a beautiful day in the Grand Canyon. No one is here. It's February. They're calling for a high of 60 degrees on the rims. 70 should be the call down where we're going to be hiking today. YouTube Nation, I am so glad to be back in the Grand Canyon. I love hiking here, and this is a special treat. The Grandview Trail is not a fully maintained trail by the National Park. It is taken care of, but not fully maintained. It is a 1,000-foot drop in the first mile, extremely steep, maybe a little ice, but I got my micro spikes on. We're going to start heading down, and we're going to let the adventure begin. Now this trail is unlike any other trail you've seen in my hiking videos before. This trail was created by miners in the 1890s, before this was a national monument or a national park. You guessed it, lots of ore came from here. Boy, that is a steep drop. That's Horseshoe Mesa, and that's where we're going. Most of the ice is already gone, but you needed the micro spikes for like the first 5 or 6 switchbacks. Loaded with ice. And look at this trail. Right on the edge. Not for the faint of heart. That's what micro spikes are for, so you don't have to worry about any bit of ice. And I do want to tell you, there's enough ice still at this level to be concerned with. But it won't be long before I take them off and start warming up. You can see the structure of the trail. Reminds me of Hermit. So as I was saying, now that my micro spikes are off and the ice is gone, I can talk a little bit more. This trail was originally called the Berry Trail, built in 1890s, I think 1893, because copper was discovered. And you and I both know that most men would sell their souls to make a dime. And it didn't matter if it was in the Grand Canyon or not. As I was mentioning, it was not a national park, not even a national monument at that time. And it was extremely rich in copper. So miners built this trail to get copper, which is just crazy, considering what I just came down from. But it just proves what people do to go to no lengths to make a buck. Now, with that said, I was saying that this park, it's taken care of, but it's not improved by the National Park Service. It's just maintained. I mean, if there's an issue, they try to fix it, but they try to keep to the original design of the trail. And it's early February and the weather is fantastic, and because of that little bit of ice, I can tell you right now, I probably won't see very many people on the trail today. That's where we're headed, that mesa right there in front of you. It doesn't take long to get warm in the canyon. I'm probably about a mile in now. It's got to be at least 10 degrees warmer. On the rim, the overnight low was 25. It probably was about 40 degrees when I started hiking. And it's definitely in the 50s now. That's where I came from. Can you see the route? You're a better man than I am if you can. Give you a perspective where I've come from. Start all the way up at the top. Absolutely amazing morning. No wind. Hiking in the shade. Well, for the last 2 miles, I've been walking in shade, but the sun, I'm about to receive its glory. Getting very close to Horseshoe Mesa. Horseshoe Mesa. Quite big, quite long, and quite flat. I'm actually going to hike down through here to Cottonwood, and then I'm going to hike all the way around on the other side of the mesa on the Tonto and come up right through there. And it is just a beautiful day to do this today. I cannot get over this, but man, it almost feels like every time the Grand Canyon is just such a special place, isn't it? Way back there is Grandview Point. That is for the Grandview Trail. I've done that quite a few times. You can always click on the top left-hand part to watch that video. And while you're watching this video, I'm gonna get my hike on. So we're getting close to the mines. You know how I can tell? That's right. Unfortunately, one of the after effects of mining copper is radiation. Some of the after effects of mining. And another pleasant sign, not this sign, this sign. That is an unfortunate characteristic of the history of American culture. I'm in the Grand Canyon, but we really tried to screw it up. If you can't read it, it says Pace Springs. This is the way I'll be coming back, but for now, we're heading towards the mesa. Okay, our break off to Cottonwood Creek. Before we go, give you a special look. I was told that this is known as Last Mine, and that there were some old mining remnants here. Let's see if we can find any. Huh. I stand away from the shade. And a couple of pieces of metal here and there. I know there's more on the page spring side. We'll head over there when we come back up off the ridge. Alright, I'm on Cottonwood, headed towards the Tonto now. I've seen lots of mining equipment all across the western part of the U.S. The most I've ever seen was on the Mount Sherman hike. I'm going to make a link to that right now. You can click on the top left-hand part of the screen. Incredible mining equipment there. I know there'll be more mining equipment to see on this hike. I promise to show it to you. But for now, lordy lordy, look at that. Stunning views on the Cottonwood Trail as I hike down towards Tonto. Boy, you can see the trail right along the edge of the cliffs. And down there, it'll take us all the way down to Cottonwood. We're getting close to Cottonwood Creek. You know why they call it Cottonwood? Because of all the cottonwood trees. Bet you didn't think you'd hear that, would you? Running water. There's quite a few places where you can get water here in the Grand Canyon. Obviously, that's a place where you would need to purify the water, drink at your own risk. The water runs quite some ways from Cottonwood. Shortly after Cottonwood Creek, we cross this dry creek bed and follow the cairns and take the Tonto Trail. But the Tonto Trail breaks into two parts. Let me pull up my map and show you. Alright, we started right here this morning at Grandview Point. We took the Grandview Trail, the Cottonwood Trail, to this junction. This is the junction on the Tonto where it splits. The way I'm going on the Tonto is to the right, so I'm going to follow the creek still, and then follow the Tonto through all the way to Page Springs, then back up and finish. But the Tonto also goes to the left. The Tonto goes 90-some miles here in the Grand Canyon. I've done other parts of the Tonto, from Hermit to Bright Angel, and from Kaibab to Bright Angel. This part of the Tonto goes from Grandview, as you can see it continues, all the way through the other side of my map. On the other side, Kaibab continues, Tonto, excuse me, continues all the way to Kaibab and then up. That is almost 28 miles, and I would love to do that sometime, but the difficulty is this: there's no bus system to take you on 64, which is the road, and drop you off at Grandview. But for now, we're going to get on the Tonto, start heading around the Horseshoe Mesa. Right here at this waterfall is where the Tonto splits. You can see it on the other side. Now from Tonto to Kaibab, It is called the Grapevine Loop. And if you look that up, you'll be able to see more information about it. Like I said, it's 27 some odd miles. Horseshoe Mesa. Finally starting to get around it. Down there is Cottonwood and this giant butte at the Tonto. Right there, you can see it right there. Have to go all the way across. And then once you finally come across, this is your view and the way I'm hiking. Never gets old, does it? Finally going around Horseshoe Mesa. We're going to start heading this direction. And way out in the distance, let me try to zoom in. Yeah, that little point right there is the Grand Canyon Watchtower on the eastern side of the park. Every now and then you find a spot and you go, wow, I'm in awe. And that's the spot right now. Absolutely incredible. And there's no one here. And there's very few people that would do a Grandview Tonto hike, and that's why I wanted to make this video. But the other thing is, that makes hiking so unique is there was no one else on planet Earth that said, "Boy, you know what I want to do tomorrow? I'm going to drive to Grandview and hike the Tonto." No one else did it. It puts you in a unique class. And I'm very happy to be able to share this amazing view with you today. And I hope you're in awe as well. All right, before I hit that butte in front of you, the trail will go to the right because I'm finally around Horseshoe Mesa. Horseshoe Mesa is all of that. And in front of you, that is Grandview Point. And then that is Skeleton Point, where many day hikers hike to and then turn around. Looking at it that way, you think to yourself, is that all I did? But believe me, it is still a challenge. Straight in front of you is where the Colorado River runs. The greatest thing about this entire view is not it's just a canyon. It's the colors. It's the essence of the canyon itself. And outside of that little tower, there are no man-made structures. Still on the Tonto, closer to Page Springs. I think my view to the left is pretty good though. So this is the other side of Horseshoe Mesa, and you can see the Tonto Trail, but this is what you really want to see. How about that? And where I'm standing, that is probably about a 2,000 foot drop. No less. Not for the faint of heart, folks. Not for the faint of heart. But a stunning, stunning view. That last video I was standing right there. That gives you a perspective of the awe. You can even see the bottom. Little creek down there. So I gotta tell you what I just saw. On the trail was, not that I like talking about feces, but it was rather large, it smelled, and it was recent. And it wasn't bighorn sheep. And there are not wolves in the Grand Canyon, which leaves only one really large four-legged animal potentially left, and that is a mountain lion. And mountain lions are here in the park. I have never seen one. I know of someone who knows someone who has seen one on the trail. But the feces is more than enough, and I know you're excited to potentially see a mountain lion here in the Grand Canyon. I would preferably not. In the middle of the day, probably wouldn't see them, be my guess. They tend to be more night predators. But quite fascinating. There you go. My view of nature. Let's continue hiking. In an unmarked area, this is where the Page Spring Trail separates from the Tonto. I came over here to take a look at my map. There's some cairns right there. The trail's up there. And somebody was kind enough to piece all this together. And you can see why this area was mined so much. You guessed it, copper. Oh, that's copper. Quite a bit of it as well. So, all right, we're on our way. Gonna start heading up back to Horseshoe Mesa. You can see the cairn on the big rock. Just in some shade barely. Following the wash. Right down there is the turnoff. And I followed the creek all the way to here. And I realized that the trail had to be out of the creek. So I scrambled up here, back on trail. Even happens to for your success. That's why you bring a map, topographic, to give you an idea where you need to go. On our way to Horseshoe Mesa. All right, Page Springs. How long do you think that's been there? Deep in the heart of the Grand Canyon. It's Page Springs. Look at that. Look how clear that water is. I tell you what, I don't need water. But I don't know how much purification that water needs. Another man-made cliff. I'll show you what it means. I have found a mine. Take a look at that. That's a pretty serious piece of equipment. Even left some nails. Look at that. Did you lose an axle? I hope not. Look at that. Minegates.com. Hey, who would have thought there were .coms back then? You can't see as far as I can, but that goes really far into the canyon. Wow. It is quite cool in there. Well, I promised I'd find some mining stuff. How's that? All right, on our way to Horseshoe Mesa. Get the lawnmower. Look at this trail. This is crazy. And finally, just before you get to the top of Horseshoe Mesa, there's another tunnel. I'd stay out of it, unless you like bats. And another giant piece of mining equipment. Looks like some kind of grinder. Wow, look at the old belt still in it right there. Right there. All right, I finally completed the loop back here at Pace Springs. Just came from there. There's your radiation sign, and heading back to the top from Horseshoe Mesa. Just cruising along before the serious elevation begins. Alright, that's where we're headed. And that is where we came from. Beautiful. So the last part of this hike is the toughest. The last mile is well over 1,000 feet of elevation gain. I'm a little tired, my legs hurt a little bit. But just remember, life without risk is Disneyland. And if you wanted to go to Disneyland and spend time with Mickey, you wouldn't be watching this video, would you? You want to be here, hiking. So let's continue with the adventure. You can see the logs right there, which is part of the development of the trail. In the last mile, definitely a 25–30% grade, most of it. Pretty steep. Just remember, pain is temporary, glory is forever. Let's finish this off in style. Getting close. Shouldn't be that much longer now. All right, YouTube Nation, we are back. Whew. Man. According to my mileage counter, it was 16.52 miles today, and my total time was 7 hours. Not too bad with having to do a little route finding near Page Spring. But man, that last mile, pain but glory. So, I got over 125 hikes all across this country. I've got lots of hikes here in the Grand Canyon. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please make sure that you do so for me. I'd really appreciate that. I'm For Your Success, known as Dr. Brandon 4. Thanks for watching. Till next time, I'll see you on the trails.